Hi, today we're going to be looking at metric measurements and the different tools that scientists use when they are working in a laboratory and things that you'll be using as you work through your laboratory experiences as well. So the first thing is, what is length? Well, I'm assuming that you know that length is the distance between 2 points. Now you notice on this little ruler here, this is set up in centimeters. If you were to look at the width of your index finger, your pointer finger, you would see that is approximately 1 centimeter. Don't get that confused with the inches measure that is oftentimes on the other side of your rulers. So how long is this screw in centimeters? You'll notice it's just a little bit past the 5, and since it is just one dot out of the 10 past the 5, the answer would be 5.1 centimeters. Each of those little individual lines that you see there, these are millimeters. There are 10 of those in 1 centimeter. Remember that you need to measure to the smallest place value that the tool will let you use, and use decimals. So that's why we went to 5.1 centimeters. So what are the metric units for measuring length or distance? You're always going to use a meter for measuring length or distance. Now, you might have heard the beginnings change. Sometimes it'll say centimeter or kilometer or millimeter, but basically the unit is a meter. Let's go ahead and take a quick look at this short video on measurements with metrics.
Athletic tournaments throughout the world measure in metric dimensions. This diving board, 10 meters high. An Olympic-sized pool is 50 meters long. Meter, base unit for length.
Meter, about as long as a baseball bat. A meter can be the length of an average person's long step. For most people, that is.
The height of a handle on a standard door is about 1 meter from the floor.
So the basic unit then is a meter that we're going to be looking at. A kilometer, which you've probably heard like a 6K run, or a 10K run, sorry. 1 kilometer equals about 1,000 meters. 1 meter, which is the height of the doorknob, is about 100 centimeters. Remember, that's the width of your finger. So 1 meter is going to equal about 1,000 millimeters. That's the little teeny measure. So which is longer? Well, 1 meter or 105 centimeters. Well, 1 meter would be 100 centimeters, so of course that one's longer. On this one, from 4 kilometers or 4,400 meters, that one's longer. 12 centimeters or 102 millimeters. Well, if it was millimeters, that would be 120. That's why that one's longer. And this one, 1,200 millimeters or 1 meter. 1 meter would equal 1,000 millimeters. So how many millimeters are there in a centimeter? Well, we've already talked about there are 10 little teeny millimeters in 1 centimeter. Now, the length of this line, if you'll notice, is 32 millimeters long because it goes just a tiny bit past it. So what is the length of the line in centimeters? It would be 3.2 centimeters. Remember to use the smallest place value. So here's some tools that scientists use to measure volume. That's like how much you can put into something. They use measuring cups, graduated cylinders, beakers, or measuring spoons. You can also measure volume using rulers, meter sticks, or tape measures. So what exactly is a volume? Volume is the amount of space that an object takes up. You've probably seen this. It's the volume in, you've probably seen a 2-liter bottle of soda. Well, that's the volume in the soda bottle. It has 2 liters in it. Let's go ahead and take a quick watch of this video.
Liter, measure volume of gasoline.
Or the volume of most any refreshing beverage.
Volume is the amount of space in a contained substance, like water in a swimming pool, measured in liters. Which has more, 750 milliliters or 1 liter?
You're absolutely right. There are exactly 1,000 milliliters in 1 liter.
So liters are liquid measures or measures of volume. Okay, so 1 liter is going to equal 1,000 milliliters. Did you notice that the prefix on those are the same? 1 milliliter equals 1 centiliter, sorry, cubed. That's a long story. We'll get into cubing it later. So which one of these is larger, 1 liter or 1,500 milliliters? Hopefully you said 1,500 because this would be 1.5 liters. This one, 1.2 liters, would equal 1,200 milliliters, sorry. Now, a graduated cylinder is a tool that's going to be used to find the volume of liquids, and here's how. You read the measurement based on the bottom of what's called the meniscus, or the curve. When using a real cylinder, make sure you're eye level with the level of the water. So what's the volume in this cylinder? Well, if you look at it carefully, you'll see it's 43 milliliters. Now, what causes the meniscus? It's actually, believe it or not, liquid is kind of sticky, and so it sticks to the side of the cylinder, and that's why we read the bottom of the meniscus, not the top. So what is the volume of these measures? Now this makes it a little easier because they're straight lines. If it was a real cylinder, it would have a little bit of a curve to it. But you read the bottom of it, so you should see that that first one would be 52 milliliters. The next one, I'll give you a second. Say it out. Did you get 37? And how about this last one? Notice that the lines are not as easily spread. So the line is part the way between 25 and 20. So hopefully you estimated it as 22.5 to 23 milliliters. Okay, so measuring volumes of solid shape. So what tool can be used to measure the volume of something like this? Well, probably you're going to say we would measure it with a ruler. And of course you probably know the formula for measuring volume, which is length times the width times the height. The length would be 10, the width is 8, and the height is 9. Although if you turn the cube, those would change, but it doesn't really matter which you put in as long as you get the 3 different ones. Of course, you multiply those together, and you would come up with 720 centimeters cubed to the 3rd power because there are 3 measures. Now, what if we wanted to measure an irregular shape like this rock in the bottom of this? I have no idea how to measure a rock and find the volume of that rock. However, a long time ago, a man figured out how to do this when he was trying to find out if the king had been cheated out of gold in his crown. What he ended up doing was exactly this. He measured the object, then he measured it without the object and with the object in the container, and then he subtracted the difference to find out how much the change occurred. So the water displacement is what was used. So in the very first one with the object, you'll notice, don't forget the meniscus curve, you're at 260 centimeters cubed. For this next one, you are at 200, oops, and that says milliliters, I'm sorry, it should have said centimeters cubed. And lastly, it should be, when you subtract them, 60 centimeters cubed. So what are some tools that scientists use to measure mass? Mass is kind of a fancy way of saying weight. You can use a balance in gram pieces and weigh them. By the way, 1 gram is about the weight of a small paper clip, so it's really little. You can use a pan balance in little gram pieces, a triple beam balance, or you can use an electronic balance. So what is mass? Mass is the amount of matter that is in an object. So it's not just your weight, it's how much is actually stuffed into that space.
1,000 grams? This package of ground beef is 1 kilogram. Remember, there are exactly 1,000 grams in 1 kilogram.
This 5-kilogram roast can easily serve over 10 or 12 people.
Whereas a 10-kilogram turkey should serve about 20 happy appetites.
Kilograms can be very heavy. 40 kilograms requires a strong back to carry. But 1,000 kilograms is 1 ton. At home, around the world, kilogram is the base unit for mass.
So the base unit of mass is the gram, and then you'll notice they put the kilos or whatnot in the beginning of them. 1 kilogram equals 1,000 grams. 1 gram is 1,000 milligrams, and again, a gram is about the weight of a paper clip. So which is larger, 1 kilogram or 1,500 grams? Hopefully you said 1,500. 1,200 milligrams or 1 gram? And you should have said, oops, you should have said the 1,200 milligrams because that would actually equal 120 grams. I'm sorry, 100, it would be, I'm sorry, no, it would not equal 120 grams. That would equal 1.2 grams. I apologize. 12 milligrams compared to 12 kilograms. Of course, the kilograms is going to weigh a lot more than that. And 4 kilograms, or 4,500 grams, that would be 4.5 grams if we did it. Now let's take a look at measuring mass on a triple beam balance. First thing you do is put the object up on the pan, and then you're going to slide the weights there in the middle until it locks into place and it begins to balance. Then you keep going with the other weight, and finally you start with the small weight on the inside and move it until the beam and the balance lines up exactly. Then you add up the amounts and you find out what the total is to the nearest tenth of a gram. So for example, on this one, notice this is the 300. Then we would have a 70, and this is 3 with 4 lines over it, so our total answer for this would be 373.4. There's other things you can use to measure weight. There's a spring scale, a pan scale. So what exactly is weight? Well, it's the amount of pull that gravity has on an object. So of course, if you were on the moon, you would weigh 1/10 what you weigh here on Earth. If you weighed 100 pounds here on Earth, you would only weigh 10 pounds on the moon, which is why they have to weight down their boots. So what units are used to measure weight? Well, they use newtons or grams. Now, when you're using a spring scale, it's going to balance and hook on to whatever it is you're trying to weigh, and then you read it after it stops moving and you can tell where it lines up. So for example, if you look at this one, you're going to see how this lines up at 2 newtons. This one lines up a little bit above it at 1.7. Okay? So how many parts is each newton divided up into? So if you look at between the number 1 to the number 2, it's split up into 10 parts, just like your centimeter ruler was split up into 10 milliliters. So how many newtons are in this one? Don't say 1, it's not quite 1. It's going to be a 0.7. So what are these weight measures? I'll give you a second to look at it. Remember, you're reading the top of the line. Did you get 3.4? 4.9? And 0.6. Now, to measure temperature, scientists use thermometers. So what exactly is temperature? Well, it's a measure of how hot or cold something is. And really what it is it's a measure of the absence of heat. The measure of the heat or energy in a substance, and it's the average speed of the particles in the substance. So if you rub your hands together, they get warm because you've sped up the particles. So Fahrenheit, water freezes at 32 degrees, boils at 212. Celsius, 0 and 100. I'm going to give you a minute to solve this. Go ahead and stop the video, and then after you've solved this and you see if you can measure these, then play and see if you got the answers right. This is what you're going to record on your page in order to be able to get your HP points. Okay, I'm giving you a couple more seconds. All right, let's see how you did. Did you get them? Excellent. Thank you so much for staying with me. If you need any other help with this, go back and just watch the section that you did in fact need.